I wonder, Minister, whether you might be able to confirm the reports this morning that self-isolation for those who are symptomatic, COVID-19 symptomatic, is to be extended from 7 to 10 days.
Well, this is a decision that's clinically led. The Chief Medical Officer will be setting out details later today. What I would say is that, I can't steal his thunder, but what I will say is that we will always do what is necessary to protect people, and we are guided by the clinical judgments, by the science in this, okay, as across the board.
I understand the desire not to steal Jonathan Van Tam's thunder, but at the same time, it's all over the papers this morning. Someone in government, someone in your department is presumably briefing this stuff. I'm just wondering why, you're happy to tell print journalists about it, but you're not happy to tell broadcast journalists about it. I mean, on a related topic, yesterday we heard in the papers that Boris Johnson is worried about a second wave. This morning in the papers, more anonymous briefings suggesting that the scientists are. If you're worried about a second wave, why aren't you telling us? Why are we getting all this behind-the-scenes briefing going on whilst we're in the middle of a viral pandemic?
Well, I am worried about a second wave. I think you can see a second wave starting to roll across Europe, and we've got to do everything we can to prevent it from reaching these shores and to tackle it. The measures that the Chief Medical Officer will set out later are part of that, but so too are the measures that we're taking, for instance, to ensure that we don't directly bring cases back to this country where there's a big spike in cases. For instance, as we saw in Spain, we keep those quarantine rules under review all of the time, and we're taking action, and we will take action if it is needed to keep this country safe. So absolutely, on a second wave, it is something that I worry about, and I worry about it because we can see it happening. Around the rest of the world, outside of Europe, there are clearly very sharp increases in the number of cases in places like Brazil, Mexico, India, and other places. But closer to home in Europe, including in some of the countries that we had exempted from quarantine because their cases were so low, we're seeing that come up, and we won't hesitate to act.
Apologies if there's a touch of frustration edging into my tone, because to be honest with you, I just like to know things before other people. But another piece of briefing put to the Telegraph yesterday, ministers looking to reduce the 14-day quarantine period for people coming into the United Kingdom. I mean, is that true?
Well, we're always looking to how we can have the least possible burden of the measures that we have to put into place. So that is something on which we're doing some work, but we will only come forward with a proposal when we are confident that it is safe to do so. So again, this is very much guided by the clinical science, and the CMO will be speaking on it later today. But the broader point is that there is a serious concern about a second wave that's clearly now moving across Europe, and we need to take action, and action to protect this country and protect everybody in it. And if that means increasing the number of days that people who tested positive have to self-isolate, then so be it, because these measures are necessary to keep people safe.
But here is one that I'm sure you can answer. Is it the case, as is also being reported in some of the papers this morning, that the R number in the southwest and the southeast of England is now above 1, that we are seeing exponential growth again?
Well, these figures are published by the statisticians, and there'll be another publication tomorrow. And I'm not going to prejudge again what the statisticians say, because it's important to do this properly. But we have seen that the number of cases, which was coming down pretty sharply, that has flattened off, the number of people who have positive cases. And we follow these things very, very closely. But I think you can see from what I'm saying that we have significant concerns about the second wave that is coming across Europe. And it's not just Spain, you mentioned Spain, but there are other countries too where the number of cases is rising, and we're absolutely determined to do everything that we can to keep this country safe and to make sure that we are protected from it.
I wonder, Minister, how concerned you are about the story on the front of the Mail, and actually picked up in a number of places this morning, that in terms of access to GP surgeries, 9 out of 10 people these days are having their consultation over the phone, via video call or so on. I mean, are you happy with that state of affairs, given how long it's been since you said that the NHS should start getting back to normal?
I'm incredibly pleased with the increase in the number of people who are able to access their GP, whether online or by the phone, is one of the big changes that we've seen, and we've seen it right across the board. And in the same way that, you know, people are working from home more, far more people are choosing to talk to their GP either on the phone.
So is this the new normal then? Is this the new normal in terms of accessing GP services, that we should expect, just as a matter of course, that we will be doing it not face-to-face, but in the main over video?
Of course, the face-to-face appointment needs to be there for people who need it, and there's many medical procedures that you simply can't do online or over the phone. But the increase in the number of people who want to access their GP by video call or on the phone, and the increase in the number of GPs who offer those services, you know, the number offering video conferencing has gone from under 10% to almost 100% during this crisis. That is a good thing. Now, the figures specifically that you mentioned in some of the newspapers, I don't recognise. Again, there's the statistics on this coming out later this week, but at the moment, it's about 50-50 if you look at the latest stats. That is radically up from where it was before the crisis, and this is one of the good things that's happened. It's also, on the whole, very popular, both amongst GPs and their teams in the practices and amongst patients. Now, of course, some people don't want to do that, and they want to have a face-to-face GP appointment, and that will always be available. But for the vast majority of people who would prefer to be able to do it that way, the fact that it's now very widely available is a very good thing, and I'll be saying more about this in my speech later today.
Mr Hancock, whilst I have you, I'm always on the lookout for interesting job opportunities. One has been put on the gov.uk website. Yeah, a broadcaster coming in to handle televised media briefings. Now, you know, a Scottish accent always works well in circumstances which are fairly combative. What is the point of this role? I mean, isn't it just another layer between, you know, the people and the politicians? Why are we... I'd rather speak to you than Richard Madeley, if he's still in line for the job.
Well, now, after this interview, I'll put your name forward. You know, I think...
You've got enough on your plate already, Health Secretary, believe me.
People love seeing you on their screen, so I'll take that up. It's a matter for number 10. I'll take it up with them.
Health Secretary, lovely to see you this morning. Thanks for being with us.